What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Dylan, and today I want to talk about live action adaptations for video games, whether that is a series or movies, as I feel like we've seen a bit of an influx of these type of projects recently. You know, we have the Last of Us series coming out in January. A God of War live action series was just greenlit for Amazon. And live action adaptations have always been a bit controversial, but I feel like the winds are changing recently. I feel like people are more upbeat about live action stuff. So I wanted to kind of explore that and just talk about, what are the goods and what are the bads of live action adaptations. And now, before we even get to the product itself, I think one of the more exciting aspects is the lead up or the build up, the hype, the marketing behind a live action show or movie. The questions that you as a fan get to ask, who is going to portray this character? What environments are we going to go through? How much of the story is actually going to be adapted in this show or series? How many seasons? Is this going to be a trilogy? There are so many questions and topics up for debate, and the conversations around these topics leading up to its release a lot of times are really, really fun. I even think for some people, we kind of have in our mind what we would do. If we were the director, if we were the writer, how would we like this video game to be adapted into a movie or a series? We have these preconceived ideas as to what actor or actress we'd like to portray these iconic characters. And so then we get to actually compare and contrast that with the final product. And maybe we're happy, maybe we're disappointed,
and maybe we think our ideas are better and that the show is terrible. And we can go on to social media and call people idiots for enjoying it, because God forbid that we all have different tastes and opinions on media.
So it goes without saying that live action adaptations have been going on for decades now. One of my favorite movies of all time is actually the 90s Mortal Kombat movie. Annihilation is absolutely dreadful, but that first Mortal Kombat, near and dear to my heart. I probably watched it, 15 to 20 times in my life, and I can just about quote that movie, man. I can just about quote that whole movie. God, what a masterpiece. And now, back in the day, I feel like perception around live action adaptations was more negative than positive. I think everyone did get excited when one of their favorite IPs was announced to be getting a movie or getting a TV show, but that came with a overwhelming amount of skepticism that the movie was going to flop or the studio was not going to do it justice for one reason or another. And so let's talk about that, these studios. What was the mindset of the studios developing these adaptations? And I can only guess, but what it felt like to me is that these studios, one, were maybe ignorant in regards to the IP that they were handling. Maybe they weren't gamers, right? And they didn't understand the importance of sticking to kind of the source material, maybe taking too many liberties. I also feel like these studios were maybe a little nervous doing adaptations. I think they looked at the brand of whatever they were adapting, and they said, this is a big, popular name. It will draw an audience. Simply based off of like the game sales and the general consensus around that brand. So we know we're going to have an audience, but how much is uncertain. And we obviously, we want to make our money back on this investment. So we're going to invest just enough to make it happen, but maybe not enough to allow this project to truly flourish and reach its maximum potential. A lot of these adaptations got B movie budgets. They were kind of treated like lower class citizens of the film industry. And I think that kind of makes a cannibalistic cycle, essentially. The studio, calls, hey, we're gonna adapt this game, but they're kind of nervous, so they don't give it the budget that it needs. They don't give it the love and attention. So it comes out, and then the player base or the fans come out to watch that movie, and when it doesn't reach expectations, they kind of, throw ridicule at the studio. But the studio looks at it, and they don't say, oh man, like we should have given it more budget. Oh man, we should have tried harder to stick to that source material and make a great, true adaptation. No, they look at it and say, oh, these video game adaptations, they just never work.
But what I think they didn't realize is that if you give the movie the effort that it requires,
you could have successful adaptations. It just seemed like studios were always a little too scared, too nervous to go all in. I do think something that is so important for these studios to remember when making these movies and shows is to stick to the source material. Now, obviously, there is some wiggle room. I don't want to completely discredit, creative freedom, but at the end of the day, I do think a true fan can really tell the difference between a passion project and a cash grab. So a great example, the Sonic movies, Sonic 1 and 2, I think are generally considered to be very good video game adaptations. I want to say they're even like some of the most profitable, if not the most profitable video game to live action movies ever made. Anyways, you look at those movies and you can say right away, like, these are not one-for-one adaptations to some things we see in the games. Sonic is living in a world inhabited by humans. He's interacting with human characters, and that's very different. We don't see anything like that in the video games. But the core essence of Sonic is very much still there. Sonic himself as a character is very much on brand. His abilities and powers are on brand. You get cute Easter eggs that you can find throughout the movie that kind of does really show kind of the passion and the knowledge that the studio had creating this film. Maybe they had some love for the games. And at the end of the day, you walk out of that theater saying, yeah, I just watched a Sonic movie. And then we have another example. Let's talk about the live action Halo series. Now, the Halo series is an example of a project. I would call that a cash grab. As I said before, creative freedom is great, and I support that. But when you stray so far off the path that the adaptation no longer becomes recognizable to what it is adapting, you've gone too far. In this show, Master Chief is portrayed horrendously. He's a completely different character, constantly removing his helmet, long, drawn-out stretches of dialogue, which in the games, Master Chief is a very silent protagonist, very stoic. Maybe he says 2 or 3 words at a time, and in this show, he's expressing vast varieties of emotions all over the place. And, the studio probably looked at Master Chief and said, he's a kind of a blank slate character. He's kind of boring, maybe. Let's spice him up a bit and let's have some fun with him. Let's really dive into who Master Chief is as a character. And that's great, but there are ways to do it without losing your identity as a Halo show. And that is a series where you turn off the TV after every episode, kind of scratching your head, wondering, is this a Halo series? Like this feels like any generic sci-fi action show. Now, I do think what is so fun at its core about these live action adaptations is it allows you to kind of re-experience a story that you may love for the first time again, in a new format. Because when it comes to video games, you can only play a game for the first time once. You now have an opportunity to revisit and relive this story that you love so much in a new format, in a new medium. And on top of that, to make things even better, you can also share this with family, friends, or significant others who aren't gamers, or maybe you have never even heard of the franchise that this show is based off of. Maybe grandma has no idea what The Last of Us is, but you show her the series on HBO. Next thing you know, she's a huge fan. Y'all are having extensive conversations about the adventures of Joel and Ellie, across the dinner table. And maybe grandma, because loves the series so much, she wants to check out the games. Now grandma's a gamer, and y'all are both playing Last of Us together. And that goes for everyone, mass appeal, more conversations due to more fans of the show, of the story. And as I said, this might get some people who are non-gamers into the game itself, boost sales, boost player count. That's good for the developers, which is good for gamers all around. So, I really look at live action adaptations pretty positively. I think the good that can come from them is pretty exciting. Now, if you have a bad adaptation, it sucks. But are there really, too many negative repercussions? I guess the only thing I could think of would be that you're probably not going to get another shot. If you try a live action adaptation of a certain IP and it just flops hard, odds are there isn't going to be another studio for a very, very long time who's going to be brave enough to try again. But guys, I think that's all I've got to say on today's topic. Please leave a comment down below. What are some of your favorite live action adaptations, and maybe what shows or movies are you excited for in the future? Of course, we got Last of Us and the God of War series. Otherwise, like, subscribe, share the video around, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.